wanna know what you, yeah, I wanna know what you want. My niggas gon' blow at you, yeah, my niggas gon' blow at you down.
Hello and good morning, B+ gang. Or, good night, depending on where in the world you are right now. But come on, guys, how's it going? What's the vibe for today? How are you guys all feeling? Should I wear the minion or the bob? I don't know if you can tell, but I happen to be all smiles today. Like, I'm as happy as a seal in the zoo. Because apparently you guys really like that Doja Cat video I put out, so I guess thank you, for being interested in the content that I put out and stuff. It's really cool to know that there are a bunch of people who are thinking just how I'm thinking and will engage with me on some of the ideas I have floating around in my little head. I really think that we have what it takes to legitimately build a cool community of open-minded and interesting people here. But anyways, enough with all the sappy stuff. That's not the reason why you came here today. In today's video, we're gonna be getting downright dirty, nasty, sloppy even, because they done did the unthinkable and tried to cancel the uncancelable. Now, if you don't know exactly what I'm talking about, I'm referring to the new lawsuit that has just been alleged against the artist Lizzo. If you don't know who Lizzo is, she's a female rapper slash pop star who makes pretty decent music, but is a controversial figure for no other reason than her weight, which I guess is the hill that most people decide to live or die on when it comes to Lizzo, because she proudly wears her appearance on her sleeve, and the themes of body positivity are at the forefront of a lot of her media. She is a self-proclaimed fat person, and many people take issue and offense to that because they feel like she's promoting overweightness and obesity to her fans and the masses. But on a more positive note here, there are a bunch of people, and more specifically young girls, who look at Lizzo as a sort of representation of them. And Lizzo proves to them that success can be had despite your weight or your outward appearance. And through that avenue, she has managed to become a huge figure and even a champion in the body positivity community, as well as a prominent female artist in an industry that notoriously prioritizes looks and aesthetics over actual talent. I just gotta call it how it is, because whenever someone starts talking bad about Lizzo, I have to give her her flowers, I mean, her group of dancers is literally called the Big Girls. I think that's how you say it, I don't know. Lizzo actually hosted a dance competition reality show called Watch Out for the Big Girls, where all these girls would gather and compete for spots among Lizzo's elite agents.
Girls that look like me don't get representation. Time to pull up my sleeves and find them myself. Watch out for the big girls. Worse for me.
So yeah, regardless of where you stand on it, let's just say that Lizzo is unapologetic when it comes to her appearance, which is kind of ironic once we get into some of the details of this lawsuit. But let's also just say that things in the Big Girls Club weren't as happy as they seemed from the outside looking in. I would like to clarify that this is some pretty new information, of course, but we're going to be going over some of the things that were alleged in this lawsuit. The lawsuit actually comes from within Lizzo's very own camp and comes from 3 prior members of Lizzo's dance group that I mentioned earlier, the Big Girls. They claim that Lizzo and her production company created a hostile work environment by making their working conditions borderline intolerable. The group of 3 women consists of Ariana Davis, Noelle Rodriguez, and Crystal Williams, 2 of which were actually on the Watch Out for the Big Girls reality show as former contestants, just to give you a bit of background on who these people are. So while we're going over some of the information here, just remember that these girls, or at least 2 of them, had to already go through the grueling task of going through a reality TV show before they could even get the chance to work with Lizzo in the first place. It's not everything, but I just want to point out how abusive a lot of these reality shows are, where you basically have to work for the approval of some famous person. Historically, those dynamics haven't led to the most healthy interactions between the contestants and the actual person running the competition.
When my mother yells at this, it's because she loves me. I was rooting for you. We were all rooting for you. How dare you?
So all of this allegedly took place during Lizzo's special tour, and the first thing alleged by the girls is the sexual harassment part of the claims. According to them, it all started in a nude club in Amsterdam's red light district on a February night in 2021. If you're not sure what the term red light district means, go ask your dad. No, it actually refers to the part of town where you could most likely buy a lady of the night, if you get what I'm coming from. At first, besides the performance taking place in a nude club, things were pretty by the book until Lizzo reportedly began inviting cast members to take turns touching the nude performers. And this act alone right here would already make a lot of people uncomfortable, but it's not as simple as it sounds, because apparently Lizzo also encouraged them to catch dildos launch from the performers' vaginas and also eat bananas protruding from the performers' vaginas. Like, wow, I can't even believe I just read that shit out loud. So no doubt a lot of these girls probably feel pressured into doing things that they already don't want to do. You gotta imagine that for these ladies in this situation, the pressure is already high. Like, if you're one of these girls, you do not want to be the person to tell Lizzo no and potentially risk killing the crowd's hype and ruining the entire mood of the show, especially when allegedly at one point during the show, Lizzo started a chant calling out to Davis, who was one of the plaintiffs in this lawsuit, essentially pressuring her to touch the breasts of one of the nude performers. Furthermore, she says that this persisted even after Davis declined already multiple times, at which she just finally caved in and agreed to touch the performer, after which she said she was mortified about and taken aback at how little regard Lizzo showed for the bodily autonomy of her own employees. Which, if we're sticking to this story here, I would genuinely have to agree with that. The most problematic thing in the hip-hop female space, in my opinion, is the overt sexualization of everything. Like, I know it's Amsterdam and it's kind of like this different place with like some different rules, but it's kind of crazy to think that no one could have possibly like foreseen that this could make some of the people involved uncomfortable. Like, did nobody ask if someone was gonna be uncomfortable with this? In my head, this is the kind of thing that you would have to sign a waiver for to make sure everyone is okay with before you put them in that situation, particularly so you can avoid situations like this where you might get lawsuits. I wondered if Lizzo had asked them beforehand if they were okay with that, but apparently she did not. Because after this incident on the tour, Lizzo would invite the dancers out to a nude bar, but not tell them beforehand, kind of like doubling down on the sentiment that she doesn't care about their bodily autonomy. But of course, that was not the only harassment that they were exposed to while they were a part of this tour. So Charlene Quigley, who was one of Lizzo's dance captains, as well as a judge on the reality show, would allegedly constantly push her Christian beliefs onto the girls completely unprovoked and unasked for. Hell, here in this article it says, after discovering that Davis was a virgin, Quigley routinely discussed the subject, brought it up in interviews, and even posted about it on social media, which was broadcasting an insanely personal detail about Miss Davis for the entire world to see. Quigley also reportedly referred to Plaintiff Rodriguez as a non-believer and was quoted saying, "No job and no one will stop me from talking about the Lord," in response to requests from the other dancers to stop pushing her beliefs onto them. And I've just got to say here now, what an actual piece of shit this person is. Like, I get it, you know. Some religious people lack the self-awareness to not know that it's a sore subject to constantly like be bringing up religion in conversations. But this lady understood and she literally just doesn't give a shit and she does it anyways. It's a no wonder you would have a toxic work environment if you just have people like this working there. One of the most damning and just like downright unbelievable claims to come from this lawsuit is that Lizzo allegedly like body shamed Plaintiff Davis after noticing that she had gained some weight, which I honestly had to double take for, because imagine Lizzo body shaming anybody. My nigga, like, what the fuck? Like, not only is that the most kettle calling the pot black shit she could have done, but it's also possibly the most hypocritical thing that she could have done. That's like if one day Osama bin Laden just woke up, look at one of his henchmen and Al-Qaeda and was like, "Yeah, so I think you be blowing shit up like a little too much, my boy. If you could just tone it down a little bit." Like, the audacity of this person. So the article says this: in professional dance, a dancer's weight gain is often seen as the dancer getting lazy or worse off as a performer. So apparently Lizzo and her choreographer would question Davis's commitment to the tour, and they used thinly veiled concerns about Miss Davis's weight gain, in which Lizzo had apparently previously called attention to after noticing it at South by Southwest Music Festival. So what they're saying is, while Lizzo never outright said that Miss Davis was overweight, she felt like there were a lot of like remarks made here or there that got that sentiment across to her. In Lizzo's defense, right, she's a pretty active plus size person. Like, we're always seeing videos of her like working out, and she's always like jumping around and being energetic during her performances. But I think it's more just so for the fact that body shaming, it makes a lot of her other public statements seem a bit more performative. Like, if anyone can relate to being singled out for their weight, it would be Lizzo. Like, you would expect it to be Lizzo. Like, what good is it being a body positivity advocate if it stops the moment somebody does something that you don't like think or it doesn't benefit you. I'm sure coming from Lizzo to that dancer as somebody that she respected, it couldn't have felt good at all. The final thing alleged in what would be an already complicated employment cycle was a grueling series of 12-hour re-auditions Lizzo had the girls partake in. So this situation started April of 2021 because apparently Lizzo was under the impression that the girls had been drinking before and during the shows. I don't know how she would come up with that, like maybe they weren't listening or maybe they just weren't having good performances at all. But in my opinion, it just kind of seems weird to like attribute it to that, like just be like, oh, you guys were drinking, you know, without any proof apparently. So they held a meeting to discuss Lizzo's allegations toward the dancers, in which one of the plaintiffs, Miss Williams, said she spoke up and got into a tense back and forth with Lizzo herself. Lizzo told the girls that they would have to audition again, and sure enough, the next day, there was an excruciating 12-hour rehearsal in which Davis soiled her pants because she was too fearful of losing her job and going to the bathroom. Hey yo, that's kind of fucking like crazy, bro, like actually. But you have to think about the culture that is being built up at this point. Personally, I don't care if I'm working for fucking Elon Musk and I'm making the most salary cut like right under him, you know? If I have to go pee, I'm gonna go pee. Like no boss of mine is just gonna make me hold in my piss for 12 hours. And certainly not Lizzo of all people. I'm not going out like that, bro. I know a lot of people will make the bodily autonomy argument, but you know, not everybody has the most agency over their actions, and especially when confronted like by an authority figure like Lizzo, who is like their boss, they're not really gonna fight back. What's even more crazy is that only 5 days after re-auditioning, Williams would be fired by Lizzo and staff publicly in front of the other dancers, presumably for talking back to Lizzo that one time. A couple days later that April, plaintiff Rodriguez complained to the manager about the decision to publicly fire Williams. This was like Lizzo's trump card, her special technique if you will. And during a meeting on April 27th, Lizzo would repeatedly threaten the dancers with being fired and told the group she quote unquote had eyes and ears everywhere. Guys, if your boss starts saying shit like this, just know it might be time to find a new job. Anyways, Davis recorded that meeting because it contained important notes and she has a medical condition that often causes her to be disoriented. But somehow, Lizzo found out somebody recorded that meeting and she was not having it. So only a few days later, Lizzo held an emergency meeting and had security confiscate the dancers' phones. The lawsuit states, Lizzo became furious, hurling insults at the group and stated that she was gonna go around the room person by person until someone told Lizzo who made that recording. Davis, of course, admitted to the recording because she meant no ill will and no harm by it, but Lizzo, again, was not having it. And with the addition of Shirley Quigley from earlier, began verbally assaulting Miss Davis and fired her on the spot as well. So later in that same meeting, plaintiff Rodriguez told Lizzo that she felt disrespected, and instead of trying to rectify the situation at this point, Lizzo began cracking her knuckles and told her that she was lucky, which if you don't know is street code for come and catch these hand, bitch. Rodriguez, reaching her breaking point, just walked out as Lizzo raised both her middle fingers and yelled a slur at her. And for now, that's about all the information we have. And sheesh, that right there. I know personally, I wouldn't let nobody do me like that, but for these girls who already worked so hard to get to the point where they could work with Lizzo in the first place, I could understand the want to like impress her and, you know, secure your spot on the team. That would be so much hours of blood, sweat, and tears and just hard work just to be thrown away at the whim of somebody else. And then on top of that, you also have to consider the fact that they are plus size women. So you really have to think, like, who really is out here hiring plus size dancers? This niche that they're operating in is already so small that if they don't dance for Lizzo, there probably won't be too many other places that they could dance. So while I personally in that situation, if I'm me, I would probably have quit a long time ago. For them, it's super scary to lose their job because Lizzo kind of has a monopoly on the plus size dancer industry. I just want to remind you guys that whatever is being alleged here today is not exactly all set in stone yet. Like, remember that this is all from these three girls' perspective. So, you know, they could have embellished some stuff. They could have exaggerated some things. It's all from their perspective, one side of the story. Not saying that they're wrong, but at this moment, Lizzo has not yet made her PR response. Like, she might actually have a really good reason for all. Okay, all right. Listen, like imagine Lizzo gets up on the stage to make an announcement to all her fans, right? And it's looking like the Gettysburg Address or some shit. and she stares out into that crowd and against the wind of her breath says, "These bitches are broke." You know, at that point, I think they would just have to like drop all the charges. No, but in all honesty, some pretty bad things have been alleged here. So I'm curious to see Lizzo's reaction and response to the whole thing. Because at this point in time, the public consensus seems to be on the side of the victims here, but people are actually waiting for a bit more information before they start going nuclear on Lizzo. And we know they got jokes. Because that's the thing, right? Of all things alleged here, I don't think anything was actually like illegal per se. Like Lizzo isn't gonna be escorted out the courthouse in handcuffs or anything, but it's all very morally unethical stuff for an employer to put their employee through. So I could see it through that lens. I'm actually very curious to see how the new information affects this case, because we have no clue if Lizzo herself was aware that she was like creating this toxic work environment. Whether or not she knew what was going on though, it's safe to say that if what these ladies are saying is completely true, then Lizzo was entirely complicit in creating a toxic work environment. These ladies were reportedly put in these compromising situations, and it really seemed like Lizzo and her management just treated these women like they were like dolls, you know, like they were just supposed to roll over and take the abuse, which is kind of like the standard in the entertainment industry. There are a lot of people that get thrown out and used by the entertainment industry, and they're overworked and underpaid just because their role isn't seen as important as like the main star heading the show. The finished product would be nothing without these guys that get treated like literal by the people above them within the music industry. Also, if this stuff is true, it obviously paints Lizzo in a pretty bad light, like probably the worst light she's ever been painted in, because it juxtaposes her outward internet persona where she's just this constant, upbeat, jovial, positive person all the time. But that's the thing, I don't think Lizzo is some like evil, tyrannical force in the world, but I think in some ways that she has been coddled by the culture, because she is supposed to fall into this like quote unquote protected or marginalized group of people. But you know what they say, absolute power corrupts absolutely. So what happens if you take a protected or marginalized person and give them a lot of power? And that's the thing, right? We've never really seen what it looks like when Lizzo holds all the power. We're used to seeing her on the defense, you know, like being attacked. But what does it look like when she's on offense? When she's the boss in her own space and she gets to set the rules. And it's looking like it might be the case where it's similar to a lot of celebrities out there where, you know, they really just might not be the best people ever. Like actually like really shitty people. Like, you know, the music is cool and all that, but their personalities just might be like really shitty and unlikable, which is fine, right? It was the case for Doja Cat. Anyways, I think I'm gonna go ahead and wrap this video up. I just really wanted to present a lot of this information to you guys. So what do you think? Do you think these ladies have a legitimate chance on cracking down Lizzo? Or were Lizzo and co completely unaware of their hostile work environment that they were fostering? Let me know what you guys think in those comments below, and if you made it this far into the video, consider hitting the like button or even subscribing. If you're a cool cat, you'd even check out that last video, but I'll see you guys in the next one.